The hammer struck metal so hard, the entire forge trembled. Ember Hale didn't notice the sweat dripping into her eyes, nor the blistering heat pressing against her skin. All she saw was the glow of the Iron Ann, angry, molten red, the storm she'd been carrying inside her for a year and a half. She swung again, harder, faster, as if she could beat the grief out of the world. Outside, a dust storm snarled across the dry streets of Ridgetop Valley, throwing grit against the forge windows like claws. The wind howled, shutters banged, and somewhere a horse shrieked in panic. Ember didn't stop. She couldn't. The noise kept the memories quiet. But then, a crash, wood splitting, hooves pounding. The forge door burst open so violently that sparks scattered across the floor. A massive chestnut stallion reared in the doorway, wild-eyed and frothing, dragging a rope and a man who desperately tried to keep his footing. "Easy, easy, damn it," he barked, boots sliding across the floor as the horse yanked him forward again. The scene should have been chaotic. It was, but Ember saw something else, a man refusing to let go, even as the animal threatened to crush him. With one fluid movement, Ember dropped the hammer, seized a smoldering chain, and stepped straight into the stallion's path. The man's eyes widened. "Lady, don't." Too late. The horse charged. Ember braced, swung the chain, and wrapped it around the post so fast it snapped like a trap closing. The stallion jerked sideways, hit the beam, and stopped cold panting. Trembling, but no longer dangerous. Only then did Ember turn to the stranger. He was tall, coated in dust, with the kind of weary strength a man earns from too many years alone. His shirt was torn where the horse had nearly dragged him across the street. His breathing was ragged, but his gaze gray sharp, was steady. "You all right?" Ember asked, wiping soot from her cheek. The man didn't answer at first. He studied her like someone seeing something impossible. "I've been trying to get that horse calmed for days," he finally said, voice low. "But you..." He shook his head, almost disbelieving. "You walked straight at him." Ember shrugged, grabbing a water pail for the stallion. "Didn't have much of a choice. You were about to get trampled." The stranger let out a breath that sounded half like a laugh, half exhaustion. "Name's Ridge Calderon," he said. "I run the farm out past the canyon." Then, softer, almost hesitant. "And you're Ember Hale, the widow who runs the forge." Her hand froze for a second, but only a second. "Just Ember," she corrected quietly. Ridge nodded once, respectfully, as if he understood the weight behind the correction. Outside, the dust storm thundered. Inside, for the first time in months, Ember felt something shift in her chestnut pain, not grief, but the faintest spark of something she thought she'd lost forever. Someone had walked into her world of fire and ashes, and he hadn't turned away. Ridge didn't leave the forge for a long while. The storm outside beat against the wall so violently that the iron hooks rattled. Yet the heat inside felt calmer than the storm Ember carried in her chest. She kept moving, checking the stallion's leg, adjusting the chain, brushing ash from the anvil, anything to keep silence from becoming memory. Ridge stood nearby, watchful, steady, his presence filling the room like a low-burning fire. He looked at the horse, then at her, then back again, as if choosing every second to remain present even though it clearly cost him. "That stallion yours?" she asked at last. Ridge exhaled, rubbing his neck. "He belonged to my boy." The words hit the floor like dropped iron. Ember's hammer stopped midair. "I couldn't go near him for months after." After they passed, Ridge said, "Horse nearly tore down the barn. Thought time would fix it. It didn't." Grief recognized grief, like fire recognized smoke. Ember didn't ask for details. She simply listened. Ridge touched the stallion's neck. The horse flinched, but not violently, more uncertain than afraid. "I saw your forge light," Ridge murmured. "Figured if anyone could handle him, it'd be you." "Most folks only come here when something needs fixing," Ember said. "Not when something needs understanding." Ridge studied her again, slow and searching. "You think that's all I came for?" She didn't answer. Because since Seth died, people came to her with problems and expectations, never recognition, never sincerity. A board snapped outside, making the forge door shudder. Ember flinched before she could stop herself. Ridge noticed. "You okay?" "Fine," she lied. He didn't push. His silence wasn't heavy, was steady, patient, unsettling in its gentleness. She tightened the chain until the stallion relaxed. Ridge watched her hands, scarred, strong, certain. "You're good with him," he said. "Better than anyone I've seen." "He's scared," Ember replied. "Fear looks like fury when no one bothers to see the difference." The words hit him like a truth he'd spent years avoiding. Ridge drew a slow breath. "I could use help. With him, with the ranch. But I get it if you don't want trouble." Ember looked at the trembling stallion, then at the man who had carried his grief like armor. "Trouble's coming either way," she said softly. "But this isn't the kind I mind facing." Relief flickered in his eyes, small but real. And for the first time in 18 months, Ember felt something unfamiliar, stirring. Hope. The storm died before dawn, leaving the streets washed in pale silver. Ember stepped outside, breathing air that didn't taste like smoke. The forge still radiated warmth behind her. But she needed distance, if only a few feet from the intensity of the night before. From Ridge, from the shift she felt the moment he entered her forge. Ridge joined her minutes later, dust on his sleeves. Movements slow and intentional, as if solitude had trained every gesture. The stallion rested inside, calmer than she expected. "Storm cleared," he said. "Doesn't feel like it." He understood. She saw it in the small tightening of his expression. Silence settled between them, not sharp, not uncomfortable, just careful. "About last night," Ridge began. "Didn't mean to stay so long. Didn't mean to pull you into my mess." "You didn't," Ember said too quickly. "I chose to help." Ridge held her gaze, steady and grateful. "People don't usually choose to get involved with me. Not anymore." That shadow in his voice, familiar, heavy, settled between them. Ember crossed her arms against the cold. "You're not the only one folks avoid," she said. "People look at me and see something that doesn't fit. Too strong, too loud, too much." "Too much for who?" Ridge asked. "For them." Warmth flickered in his eyes. "Then maybe they can't measure right." The words hit deeper than she let show. He hesitated. "If you still want to come to the ranch, you can say no." The vulnerability in his tone startled her more than the storm. "I'll come," she said. "But not to save you." A faint smile tugged his mouth. "Didn't think you were the saving type. More like the type who tells a man to face his demons." "I won't fight them for you." "No," Ridge said quietly. "Just walk beside me while I try." Something in her chest shifted. People began stepping outside, gathering debris. Some glanced at Ember and Ridge with sharp curiosity. She felt their stares like needles. "You want me to go?" he asked. "No," she answered before she could think. "Let them look." Respect, not surprise, lit his eyes. "I'll bring the stallion tomorrow," Ridge said. "We'll start then." "Tomorrow?" He touched the brim of his hat, an old, gentle gesture, walked toward the ranch. the morning light outlining him in gold. Ember watched him go, breath steadying. Something had changed. And for the first time since burying Seth, she didn't feel alone stepping into the day. The sun climbed slowly over the jagged cliffs of the canyon as Ember made her way to Ridge's ranch. Morning light spilled across the vast stretch of land, turning the dry earth the color of burnt gold. The air smelled of sagebrush and dust, cleaner than the smoke-filled forge, but sharp enough to sting her lungs. It felt like stepping into a world untouched by town whispers, one where her strength didn't echo so loudly against other people's fears. Ridge was already outside, repairing a section of split fencing. He worked with quiet focus, sleeves rolled up, muscles shifting beneath sun-worn skin. He didn't see her at first, or maybe he did, and he simply chose to finish his task before acknowledging her. Either way, Ember found herself pausing for a heartbeat, longer than she meant to, not by his appearance, but by the calmness around him, a calm she hadn't felt in years. When he finally looked up, the change in him was subtle but unmistakable. His shoulders eased, his breath steadied. "You made it," he said. "I said I would." "That you did." A small nod, respectful, steady. He wiped his hands on a rag, then motioned toward the corral. "He's in there." Calmed down some, but not by much. Ember approached the fence, and the stallion immediately snorted, hooves shifting restlessly through the dirt. His eyes rolled white for a moment before settling on her. Recognition flickered, hesitant, uncertain, but real. "He remembers you," Ridge said. "I didn't give him reason not to." Ridge moved beside her, leaning lightly against the railing. "He hasn't trusted anyone since." "Well, since them." Ember heard the unspoken names: wife, child, loss. The canyon wind tugged at her hair, and for a moment neither of them spoke. "How long has he been like this?" she finally asked. Ridge exhaled. "Since the fire. Since everything went wrong." Ember turned to him sharply, but Ridge's gaze remained on the stallion. His hands tightened on the wooden post, just enough to show the strain. "You don't have to tell me," she said softly. "I know," Ridge answered. "But maybe I should." The stallion pawed the ground, kicking up small clouds of dust. Ember stepped into the corral, slow and measured. Ridge stiffened, ready to intervene. But she raised a hand and he stopped instantly. She moved with deliberate patience, letting the horse read her, letting him decide how close she could come. "I'm not here to force you," she murmured to the animal. "Just to stand with you." Ridge watched her, something loosening in his expressions, something raw, something grateful. The stallion's breathing steadied. Ember reached out, not touching, just offering presence. The horse lowered his head an inch. 1 inch, but it was enough to mark a shift. "You see," Ember said quietly, "fear changes shape when you don't meet it with more fear." Ridge swallowed hard. "You sound like you're talking about more than the horse." "Maybe I am." Ridge opened the corral gate slowly, joining Ember inside with the cautious steps of a man who had spent too long fearing his own memories. The stallion flicked an ear toward him but didn't bolt as Ridge approached something that startled him more than he let on. "That's new," he muttered. Ember looked over her shoulder. "Because you're not walking toward him like you expect him to hurt you." Ridge stiffened at the accuracy of it. "I used to think he blamed me," he said, barely audible, "for not saving them, for surviving when they didn't." Ember didn't turn away from the horse, but her voice softened. "Animals don't carry guilt the way we do. They hold echoes. That's all." Ridge wasn't sure he believed that, but he let the words settle between them. The stallion shifted again, uneasy but not panicked, and Ember motioned for Ridge to step closer. He hesitated, then obeyed every movement, tight with old fear. "Put your hand here," Ember instructed gently, guiding his palm toward the horse's shoulder, "not on the neck. Too much pressure there will spook him." Ridge's breath caught when his hand finally touched warm, trembling muscle. The stallion flinched, but did not rear. Ridge exhaled, shaky and uncertain, but the moment held. "You're doing fine," Ember said. He wasn't sure the words were meant for him or for the horse. But either way, something inside him uncoiled. He stroked the stallion's shoulder once, then again, the animal gradually letting his guard down. Ember watched quietly, her expression unreadable but steady. She knew what it meant for a man drowned in grief. To reach for something that could reject him something. That reminded him too much of what he lost. "You ever miss a day?" Ridge asked suddenly, eyes still on the horse. "Of what?" Ember replied. "Being whole." The question hit like an unexpected blow. Ember took a slow breath, grounding herself before answering. "No," she said finally. "Not because I don't remember what it felt like, but because pretending I could go back only makes the break worse." Ridge nodded, jaw tightening. "I keep thinking, if I'd been quicker." "Stop." Ember didn't raise her voice, but the command was solid as iron pain rewrites. "Every memory until you can't. Tell truth from punishment. Don't let it." Ridge closed his eyes for a moment, letting the words sink in deeper than he meant them to. A gust of wind swept across the corral, rattling the rails. The stallion pressed closer to Ridge instead of away, and Ridge's eyes flew open in surprise. "He chose you," Ember said quietly. Ridge swallowed hard. "Feels like I've been waiting a long time for anything to choose me." "Maybe it was you," Ember replied, finally choosing something back. For a long moment, they stood side by side. The past still heavy, but no longer suffocating. The canyon walls held their silence, not judging it just, echoing it gently. Ridgetop Valley felt wrong the next morning, too alert, too loud, too focused on Ember in a way that made her skin tighten. The moment she stepped from her forge, she felt eyes trailing her like shadows. People lingered on porches they normally hurried past, conversations breaking apart. When she neared and stitching back together, behind her in sharp whispers, something was stirring. Ember walked with her usual steady stride, refusing to give their curiosity shape. She'd spent too long fighting to reclaim her spine after Seth's death to bow beneath judgment now. But even she couldn't ignore how tense the air felt, as if the whole town coiled around a single rumor. Near the general store, Marla Hensley planted herself directly in Ember's path. Marla's smile was sweet as syrup and just as sticky. "Morning, Ember. Heard you've been spending time at Ridge Calderon's ranch." "I've been helping with his horse," Marla hummed. "Folks say it's more than that." "Folks say a lot," Ember replied, brushing past. Marla followed. "I'm only looking out for you. After everything you've been through, you don't need more trouble." Ember stopped, jaw clenched. "Ridge is in trouble." Marla gave a pitying, poisonous smile. "His story's tragedy. Yours too. Tragedy plus tragedy doesn't make a future." The words hit like cold water on hot metal. Ember met her gaze without flinching. "I don't need you defining my future." Marla's expression sharpened. "Then be careful. The council's been talking." There it was. Ember stepped closer. "Talking about what?" Marla hesitated only a heartbeat. "About you. About how you've isolated yourself. How you're becoming unpredictable. Unpredictable. The same word they'd used after Seth died. Polite code for problem. And Ridge? Ember asked. He's always been a loner, Marla said. But you? People think you need guidance. Before you make choices that don't align with the town's expectations. Expectations, another word for ownership. If the council wants to talk, Ember said, they can say it to my face. Marla only shrugged. I'm warning you, because I care. But Ember had learned that care with a leash wasn't care at all. She walked away, pulse hammering. She hated the old dread rising inside her. Kind, she believed. She'd burned out long ago. She'd carved a life from iron and grief with her own hands. Yet one whisper from the wrong mouth could make her feel judged like a defendant in her own town. She expected whispers for her strength. She expected rumors about her independence. But she hadn't expected this, the town watching her like she was theirs to manage. And deep in that rising tension, Ember realized Ridge was becoming part of their equation, whether he knew it or not. By midday, Ember couldn't shake the feeling of eyes tracking her every move. Each clang of her hammer echoed too sharply, and every shift of shadow outside the forge felt deliberate. She tried focusing on the half-shaped hinges cooling on her bench, but Marla's voice kept looping in her mind. The council's been talking. About her. About Ridge. About what she was allowed to choose. The forge heat pulsed, but beneath it, Ember felt a creeping cold she despised. Late afternoon brought familiar footsteps, steady, heavy, edged with a tiredness Ridge never managed to shake. He stepped into the doorway, sunlight outlining him in gold. You busy? He asked. Depends who's asking, she replied, shaping metal as if the motion mattered more than the moment. Ridge stepped closer, but kept respectful distance. I went to town for feed. Folks were staring at me strange. They're watching everyone, especially us. Us, Ridge echoed. You went from being the quiet man on the edge of town to someone they suddenly have opinions about. And I, Ember exhaled. They've always had opinions about me. Ridge leaned on a post. Marla said something to me too. Ember tensed. What? That I should keep my distance. Said you're grieving. Said I'm damaged. His jaw tightened. Said to broken people don't make anything but more breakage. Anger tore through Ember so fast, she had to step away. They think grief is contagious. Seems that way, Ridge said quietly. She paced a moment, then faced him. They're trying to interfere. To decide who I'm allowed to stand beside. Ridge's voice dropped. Because I walked into your forge? It's enough, Ember said. Enough for them to invent stories. Enough for them to think I need God. Ridge pushed off the post, stepping toward her careful, deliberate. Do you want me to stay away? If this makes things harder. No. The word burst too quickly to hide. I don't want that. He searched her expression, as if trying to name something he wasn't sure he had the right to feel. The forge hummed around them, heat pulling the space tight between them. Finally, Ridge said, voice rough, then they don't get to choose what this is. The words struck deep, steadier than she expected. They'll try, Ember warned. Let them, he answered. I've lived my life with people assuming they know my limits. I'm done letting fear mean or theirs decide for me. Something solid anchored inside her. Ridge wasn't trying to shrink her or mold her pain. He was simply standing there, choosing her with quiet resolve. Outside, footsteps paused at her door before moving on. The town listening. The town waiting. They want us to flinch, Ridge said. Ember lifted her chin. Then we won't. And for the first time all day, The dread loosened not because the town approved, but because Ridge didn't need them to. Word traveled fast in Ridgetop Valley, faster than storms crossing the plains. By the time Ember stepped outside the next morning, the town had already spun its own version of her. Connection with Ridge. None of the versions were kind. Conversations stopped mid-breath. People turned away with stiff politeness, then whispered when she passed. The air felt heavy, thick with the judgment she'd learned to walk through, but today it carried something sharper, like the town was waiting for a spark to catch. When she reached the forge, a group of men stood near the entrance, pretending to fix a wagon that hadn't needed fixing yesterday. Ember recognized two of them, Hargreave and Jarrell from the council. Hargreave tipped his hat. "Morning, Mrs. Hale." "Ms. Hale," Ember corrected. "We'd like a word," Jarrell added. "A matter best addressed sooner than later. If it's about my permits, they're paid." "It isn't paperwork," Hargreave said. "It's about your associations." "Ridge, of course." Jarrell continued. "We've given you space to grieve. But when grief starts clouding judgment, my judgment isn't yours to measure." They exchanged the look of men convinced they were righteous. "Ridge Calderon is unstable," Hargreave said. "His past is concerning. We worry you're vulnerable to choices that may endanger you." Ember let out a hard laugh. "You think I'm vulnerable?" "We think you may be confusing pity with attachment," Jarrell said. "And the town can't stand by if you put yourself or others at risk." There it was. The same patronizing tone she'd endured after Seth's death, people claiming her pain made her unfit to make her own decisions. "You don't decide who I speak to, who I help, She cut herself off. "We're trying to protect you," Jarrell insisted. "No, you're trying to control me." Hargreave sighed. "If you continue down this path, we may need to intervene formally. For your own good." The threat hung between them. Ember steadied her breath. "My life belongs to me, not to you, not to this town." She pushed past them and slammed the forge door behind her, the windows rattling with the impact. Hands braced against the workbench, she breathed through the fury. They wanted her small, quiet, manageable. But Ember had walked through fire, and she was done letting anyone else dictate how she rose from it. Ridge arrived less than an hour after the councilman left. Unaware of the storm he was stepping into, Ember recognized his footsteps, the steady rhythm she'd begun to trust. For a moment it soothed her, but the anger still burned hot. "You're early," she said. Ridge studied her face. "You look like you're ready to fight." "I already did." He stepped closer. "Who?" "Hargreave and Jarrell. They cornered me outside." "What did they say?" His posture tightened. "That I'm vulnerable. That you're unstable. That the council may intervene if I keep choosing for myself." Something dark flickered in Ridge's eyes. "They're right about one thing. I am unstable." "Don't," Ember snapped. "Don't hand them words to use against you." He froze. "I've seen unstable. You're not it. You listen. You care. That's more than half this town does." Ridge exhaled, tension unbroken. "If being near me makes things harder for you, maybe I should leave," she finished. "Pretend nothing's there to protect me." His silence was answer enough. Ember stepped closer. "I don't need distance. I need honesty. Honesty is, I don't want them turning on you because of me. And I don't want them deciding who I'm allowed to stand beside." The air between them tightened, charged. "What exactly did they threaten?" Ridge asked. "That if I don't behave how they expect, they'll step in, like I'm some burden they need to relocate." Ridge's fists clenched. They don't get to do that. They think they do. He paced, anxiety radiating from him. They tolerated me on the outskirts. But the moment I stepped closer to someone they still see as fragile. Stop calling me fragile. He stopped, dead. You think I can't handle this town? I've survived their judgment since the day I buried my husband. I don't think you're fragile, he said softly. I think you're tired. And I don't want to add more weight. You're not weight, Ember said. You're the first thing that hasn't felt like weight in a long time. Silence deepened steady, grounding. If they come after you because of me, I'll face them, Ridge said. No, we face them together. He nodded slowly. Together, then. Footsteps passed outside, listening, lingering. But Ember no longer felt alone on the cliff's edge. Not anymore. The sun hung low over Ridgetop Valley, spilling gold across the dusty streets. Today wasn't about whispers or judgment. Ember felt a tension, unlike fear anticipation, fragile courage forged in fire. The town had gathered, murmurs drifting like smoke. They didn't understand what was coming. Ember stood near the forge, hands steady despite her heart pounding. Ridge arrived, dust clinging to his boots, eyes soft for her alone. Their proximity felt right solid, defiant. Hargreave and Jarrell lingered at the crowd's edge, hoping she'd falter, that Ridge would step back, that the town could bend her will. But Ember had walked through and figurative and, today, carried the calm of survival. Are you ready? Ridge whispered. I've never been more ready. They walked together toward the platform for the ceremony, steps deliberate. Townspeople shifted uncomfortably, as if their eyes could halt this moment. Ember ignored them, focused on Ridge, the man who had become her anchor, her mirror, her equal in grief and strength. On the platform, Ridge faced the crowd. This town may try to dictate what is right for us. They may think they know how to shape our lives, but we are not theirs to command. A hush fell. Even the wind paused. Ember stepped forward, brushing against his hand. We've both lost much, been judged and told what to feel. Today, we claim our own path. Today, we stand together. The officiant nodded. Ember's heart thumped not fear, not doubt, but defiant hope. Ridge took her hand fully, fingers intertwining, sealing a promise forged by shared scars. Hargreave muttered, "They think this changes everything." Ridge smiled faintly. "It changes only what matters to us." Ember felt heat not from the forge, not from anger, but from resolve. She glanced at Ridge. No council, no whispers, no town could define her life again. She was choosing herself, choosing him, their love boldly. The crowd shifted, murmurs of disbelief mixing with awe. Ember and Ridge were no longer just two broken souls. They were a union, stronger than fear, forged from loss and relentless hope. The officiant raised his hands, signaling continuation. Ember tightened her grip on Ridge, their pulses sinking. Every storm, every hardship, every defiance led to this incandescent moment. They were ready. The town held its breath as Ember and Ridge stood hand in hand. Whispers seemed louder than wind, but Ember felt only certainty. This life, this love, was theirs. The officiant's quiet voice broke the tension. "Do you, Ridge Calderon, take Ember Hale to be your partner in life? In sorrow and in joy, in loss and in hope. To stand beside her and strengthen her through storms." "I do," Ridge said, voice firm and clear, a hammer striking iron in her chest. "And do you, Ember Hale, take Ridge Calderon to be your partner? To share your burdens and dreams? To hold your heart and never let it falter?" "I do," Ember replied, steady and unwavering. She saw in Ridge the man who survived grief, who helped her survive hers, proving love could exist even in a world that tried to deny it. The crowd shifted, eyes wide in disbelief, some softening. But none could take away what had been claimed: the right of two souls to define their story. Ridge lifted her hands to his lips. "Together," he said, more than a word, a promise etched in fire, scars, and hope. Ember smiled, feeling warmth, relief, and joy as the world aligned with her heart. The town could watch, doubt, whisper, but they could not undo their choice. The officiant nodded. "By your vows, courage, and love, I pronounce you partners in life. United not by fear or expectation, but by choice." A cheer rose, hesitant, then bolder, as some townspeople recognized what they could not deny. Ember glanced at Ridgepane judgment, and isolation melted away. They had survived it together, stronger and whole. As the sun dipped behind the cliffs, Ember and Ridge stepped down, hand in hand. Challenges would come, doubts would arise. Shadows of the past linger, but they had each other. No one would define them again. Only them and love. And the life they would build unbroken, unashamed, unstoppable. The forge's smoke curled skyward. Ember glanced once more at the place that had forged her in fire, pain, and solitude. Today, it had witnessed not just iron hammered into shape, but two broken hearts welded into one. Ember squeezed Ridge's hand. "We did it. We did," he said. And together, they walked past watchers, past whispers, into a life defined by courage, hope, and the unshakable power of choosing each other forever. The storm outside hammered the cabin walls as if the whole Montana night wanted to witness what was about to happen inside. Lightning cracked, throwing a white flash across the room, just enough for Martha Cunningham to see the cowboy's silhouette standing in the doorway. Broad shoulders, mud-splattered boots, and in his hands, that wooden box. Jesse Hartford kicked the door shut behind him, not gently, not nervously, with the confidence of a man who knew exactly what he was doing. "Sit," he said. His voice wasn't raised. It didn't need to be. It rolled through the cabin with the same weight as the thunder outside. Martha didn't move. She couldn't. Her wedding dress, simple cotton, the kind Boston would have mocked her for, felt too tight across her chest. Her breath caught as Jesse placed the box on the small table between them. A plain thing, carved from dark walnut, but with iron hinges strong enough to lock away secrets. Before anything else, he said, "You need to see what's in here." Martha's heart slammed once, hard. Every memory of her past, every time someone told her she was too tall, too strong, too much tightened around her throat. Mail-order bride, a title she never thought she'd wear. But Boston had shut every door in her face, and Jesse Hartford's letter had been the only hand extended. Thunder shook the cabin again. Jesse opened the box. Inside, resting on emerald velvet, were 2 rings thick, solid, unmistakably expensive. But beside them lay something far more terrifying. Documents stamped with the official seal of the Montana Territory. Deed papers. "Half my ranch," Jesse said. "Signed over to you." Martha staggered back a step. "Why? Why would you give me that?" Finally, the cowboy looked up. His eyes weren't soft. They weren't gentle. They were honest. "Because I didn't send for a delicate bride," he said. "I sent for a partner. Someone strong enough to survive out here. Strong enough to stand beside me, not behind me." The words struck her deeper than any thunder. Partner? Not property. Not burden. Her breath shook. For the first time since stepping foot in Montana, she didn't feel like an oversized misfit. She felt seen, but fear still clung to her ribs. "Jesse, I don't know how to be what you expect." Lightning flashed again, catching the faintest curve of a smile on his mouth. Tired, tragic, but real. "I don't want you to be anything except what you already are." The storm roared, but inside the cabin, a different kind of battle had begun. One between the doubts she carried from Boston and the possibility that, for the first time in her life, someone didn't want her smaller. Someone wanted her strong. And the box between them was only the beginning. The storm didn't ease by morning. Instead, it settled into a low, angry growl that rolled across the mountains like a living thing. Jesse had already been outside for hours, dealing with whatever emergencies a ranch of his size never failed to produce. After heavy weather, Martha watched his shape disappear into the wet gray dawn, feeling the strange weight of the previous night pressing against her ribs. Half his ranch, half of everything he owned, given to a woman he had never met until yesterday. The box still sat on the table where Jesse had left it, the rings glinting softly in the weak morning light. Martha reached toward it, hesitated, then finally allowed her fingers to trace the cool metal of the thicker ring. It was too large for any delicate Boston girl, too wide, too heavy. But when she lifted it, the ring felt right in her palm, as though it belonged to hands that were made to work, to build, to endure. She tightened her jaw. Boston had always made her feel wrong. Montana, in a single night, had not. Yet doubts crept in like the cold. What if she disappointed him? What if she had misunderstood everything? A man didn't simply hand over half a kingdom, unless he needed something he wasn't saying. Perhaps strength wasn't all he was after. Perhaps he wanted someone who could bury a part of her soul and pretend it didn't hurt. The door suddenly slammed open. Martha flinched, but it was only Rory, Jesse's foreman, shaking the rain from his hat. His eyes swept over her with a blend of curiosity and something sharper. "So you're the missus," he said. Not quite disrespectful, but far from welcoming. "I am," Martha answered, straightening. Rory grunted. "Jesse said you'd help." "Good. We've got a mess in the north pasture. Fences down, cattle spooked. You ride." Martha blinked. Ride? Of course she could. She wasn't some fragile Boston flower. But no one had ever expected her to, not even her own family. "Yes," she said, more firmly than she felt. "I can ride." Rory seemed unconvinced. "We'll see. Saddle up. Jesse won't say it, but he needs you out there." Martha's heart kicked. He needed her. Already. She grabbed Jesse's old raincoat. By the door it practically swallowed her, but she didn't care. For once, she wasn't trying to look smaller. She followed Rory into the storm, stepping through mud that sucked at her boots, wind whipping her hair against her cheeks. When they reached the stables, a tall bay mare tossed her head and snorted loudly at Martha, as if testing her spirit. Martha met the animal's gaze with the same stubborn resolve she had shown Jesse the night before. "Good," Rory muttered. "She either respect you or throw you." Martha swung into the saddle. The mare didn't move. She didn't buck. She accepted her. And something in Martha's chest warmed, despite the biting rain. "Let's go," Rory shouted over the wind. "Show Jesse he wasn't wrong about you." The wind cut sideways across the plains, sharp as a blade, carrying the smell of wet earth and frightened cattle. Martha leaned low over the mare's neck as they crested the ridge. Below, Chaos moved dark shapes, scattering, pushing against each other. The herd restless and on the edge of panic. Broken fence posts jutted from the ground like snapped bones. Rory cursed under his breath. Damn storm spooked Em worse than I thought. Martha scanned the scene quickly. She saw what Rory missed: 3 calves stuck in a dip where water had gathered. 2 adults circling them in frantic confusion. If they bolted, the babies could drown in the rising runoff. "I'll get the calves," she said. Rory turned sharply. "No, too risky. You stay with the line and—" But Martha was already riding. The mare surged forward, mud spraying behind her. Every hoofall sent vibrations up Martha's spine. But she held steady, guiding the animal down the slippery slope. Rory shouted, something lost to the wind, but she kept going. When she reached the trapped calves, she slid off the saddle and waded into the cold water. It wasn't deep, but the ground beneath was unstable. Each step sank, sucking her down. The calves bleated, scared and frantic. "Easy now," Martha murmured, gripping the nearest by the scruff. The little creature fought her at first, hooves splashing wildly, but she didn't let go. She used her strength not to overpower, but to steady, to reassure. One by one, she guided them to higher ground, pushing, lifting, coaxing until all 3 stumbled free. Their mothers bumped them away protectively, and the small herd settled enough to stop the chain reaction of panic. When Martha mounted again, Rory stared at her like he'd misjudged something important. "Most women would have screamed for help," he said. Martha wiped rain from her eyes. "Most women from Boston would have—" "I'm not them." Rory gave a reluctant half-smile. "No, guess you're not." But the test wasn't over. They rode the fence line, hammering loose boards back into place. The storm had torn through like a mad animal, leaving splintered posts lying across the mud. Martha held the boards steady while Rory drove nails into them with the back of his hatchet. Her muscles burned, but she didn't let her grip slip. Even when the wind shoved her sideways, by the time the line was restored, both were soaked to the bone, but the herd was contained, and the worst danger had passed. Rory finally spoke again. When Jesse said he needed someone strong, he said, "I didn't think he meant this strong." Martha looked across the wild, storm-lashed landscape. For the first time in her life, the size and strength she'd been shamed for felt like weapons she could wield. "Maybe," she said quietly. He knew exactly what he needed. The wind outside rose again, scraping across the barn walls like claws. Jesse moved to secure the doors, but Martha caught the shift in his shoulders, the subtle tightening, the tension that didn't belong to broken fences or restless cattle. This was something older, something buried. "Jesse," she said softly, "what's really going on?" He paused with his hand on the latch. For a moment she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he exhaled a slow, heavy breath that sounded like surrender. "There's a reason I wanted a strong woman," he said. "A reason I can't take someone fragile into this life." Martha stepped closer, boots squelching in the straw. Rory hinted at something earlier, something that wasn't my place to ask. Jesse's jaw worked. He kept his eyes on the barn door, as if afraid to look at her. "My first wife," he began, "was gentle. Too gentle for this place. She wasn't built for storms or wolves or the kind of men who think the frontier is theirs for the taking." He leaned on the wooden beam, head bowed. "She died because this land demanded more than she had to give." Martha felt the ache in his voice like a physical force, not weakness, not guilt exactly, but a wound that had never healed. "And the child?" she asked quietly. Jesse's throat moved. gone with her. Silence swept through the barn, deeper than the storm outside. Martha reached out, resting a hand on the beam between them. She didn't touch him directly, but she offered him her presence, her steadiness. "Jesse," she said, "you don't have to carry that alone." He gave a short, bitter laugh. "I've carried it so long I wouldn't know how to put it down." "Then let me help." His eyes finally met her, stark, guarded, but searching for something. Maybe permission. Maybe forgiveness. But before he could speak, a sudden shout cut through the wind from outside. "Jesse, Martha!" Rory's voice surged, strained. Jesse yanked the barn doors open, and cold air punched into them. Rory raced toward them, boots slipping in the mud. "What happened?" Jesse called out. Rory stopped, panting hard. "The creek's rising again, faster than we thought. If it floods the lower field, we'll lose the entire south herd." Jesse didn't hesitate. "Saddle the roans. Martha, get the lanterns. We ride now." Martha didn't question it. She grabbed 2 lanterns, their glass still warm from the morning lighting. Jesse swung onto his horse, and Rory mounted beside him. But before she climbed onto her mare, Jesse turned sharply, toward her. "This time," he said, voice harder than before, "you stay behind me. No charging ahead alone." Martha nodded, but inside, a quiet promise rose like steel. She would follow him. She would help him. But she would not be a shadow. Not now. Not ever. Night fell fast over the ranch, swallowing the land in a murky blue darkness broken only by the swing of lantern light. Martha gripped hers tightly as her mare splashed through the deepening mud. The creek, normally a quiet ribbon snaking through the lower fields, had transformed into a roaring, swollen beast. The sound of it grew louder with every yard they rode. Jesse pushed forward, his silhouette sharp against the moving glow. "Stay close," he called. The order was firm, but beneath it, Martha heard something else: fear. Not of the storm, but of losing someone again. Rory rode on the other side of her, scanning the horizon. If the water reaches the south fence line, the herd will panic. They'll crush each other trying to escape. Martha swallowed, her pulse loud in her ears. The herd was everything: livelihood, future, survival. And if they lost it now, Jesse's gesture of giving her half the ranch would be nothing. More than a memory of what could have been. They reached the rise overlooking the lower field. Lanterns flickered as the wind howled, revealing a terrifying scene below. The creek had burst its banks, slashing across the pasture in violent currents. Dark shapes Cattell moved uneasily, milling too close to the water's edge. Jesse cursed under his breath. If the water cuts deeper, they'll be swept off. "What do we do?" Martha asked. Jesse turned to her. Rain dripped from the brim of his hat, his eyes steady and fierce. "We drive them uphill. They fear light more than water. We circle them, push them as a unit." Rory spit into the mud. Easier said than done in this hell. But Jesse wasn't listening anymore. He kicked his horse forward, riding along the edge of the rising creek. Rory followed, shouting directions over the storm. Martha hesitated only a heartbeat before guiding her mare after them. The herd bellowed, hooves sloshing in the knee-deep water. Lantern light flashed in their rolling eyes. Jesse rode wide arcs, pushing the outer cattle back, while Rory cut across the rear to keep them moving in a tight line. Martha saw a gap forming toward the water. 2 steers inching dangerously close to the swirling current. Without thinking, she galloped toward them. "Martha!" Jesse shouted. "Wait!" But she was already there. She swung the lantern high, waving it in a tight circle. The flame flickered wildly in the wind, but didn't die. The steers hesitated, snorted, then backed away from the light. Martha guided them toward the rest of the herd, pushing them into the formation Jesse was building. The moment she rejoined the group, Jesse pulled his horse beside hers. Rain streaked across his face, but his eyes burned with a fire the storm couldn't dim. "I said stay behind me." "I did what needed to be done," she answered. Lightning flashed, illuminating the stubborn tilt of his jaw. "This land will kill you if you don't respect it," he growled. "And it'll kill the herd if we don't act," she shot back. They pushed the herd slowly uphill, step by grueling step, until the cattle finally began to move as one solid mass, instead of a panicked scatter. The storm raged overhead, but the worst of the chaos seemed to ease. The ground became firmer, and the roar of the creek grew a little more distant. But Martha sensed it before she saw Itha shift in the wind, the tremble beneath her horse's hooves. A warning the land whispered only to those paying attention. "Jesse," she called. "The banks, something's wrong." He turned, just as a deep cracking sound tore through the night. The far edge of the creek soaked through, weakened by hours of flooding, gave way in a violent collapse. Water surged forward like an unleashed monster. "Move!" Jesse shouted. "Drive them faster." Rory whipped his reins, shouting commands. The herd responded, stumbling but pushing upward. But Martha saw the real danger. The collapse had opened a new channel, and water was rushing toward the lower flank of the herd with terrifying speed. Two calves, lagging behind, stood frozen in the sudden torrent. Martha didn't think. She reacted. She spurred her mare forward, racing down the slope before Jesse could stop her. The lantern swung wildly, throwing erratic arcs of light across the waterlogged field. "Martha!" Jesse roared behind her. "Don't!" But she was already weaving between the larger cattle, fighting the current that rose higher with every second. Her mare fought to keep balance, hooves slipping in the mud. Yet she pressed on until she reached the calves' small, trembling shapes, struggling against the icy water. "Come on," she urged, leaning down, gripping the closest one by its slick hide. She pulled, guiding, dragging it toward higher ground. The second calf stumbled behind them, bleeding desperately. The water climbed to her knees, then her thighs. The force of it shoved her sideways, nearly knocking her off the saddle. Her mare whinnied in panic hand, then the current caught them. They slid. For one terrifying heartbeat, Martha felt the world tilt, the darkness swallowing the horizon. The waters surged, dragging horse and rider toward the deeper cut of the creek. Then, a hand Strong closed around her arm. "Martha!" Jesse's voice cut through the storm. His horse braced on higher ground as he leaned with impossible strength, pulling her back inch by inch. Water fought him, clawing at her legs, her boots, her coat. Her mare kicked wildly, trying to find footing. "Hold on," Jesse shouted. She did. With a final heave, he ripped her free of the current. She collapsed against his saddle, breathless, shaking. The calves scrambled to safety behind them, nudged uphill by Rory. Jesse held her still, one arm locked around her waist. Rain ran down both their faces, but he didn't seem to notice. "What were you thinking?" he rasped. "That they needed help," she whispered. His forehead pressed briefly against hers, just long enough for her to feel the tremor in his breath. By the time they returned to the ranch, the storm had finally exhausted itself. The sky hung heavy and purple, like bruised velvet, and the last drops of rain slid from the barn roof in quiet, steady taps. Martha's clothes clung to her skin, still soaked, still carrying the chill from the creek. Jesse didn't release her arm until they were inside the barn, the lantern light casting long shadows behind them. Rory peeled off toward the stalls to check the horses. leaving them alone. Jessie turned to Martha, jaw clenched, eyes dark with something she couldn't quite name. Fear, anger, relief, maybe all of it at once. "You could have died," he said. "So could those calves," she replied. "That's not the same." "It is to me." The words hung between them like a struck bell. Martha stepped back, pulling off her wet coat, letting it fall with a heavy splat onto the straw-covered floor. "You keep expecting me to be careful," she said, "to hold back, to be small enough to fit inside whatever box you think keeps people safe. But you didn't choose a fragile woman. You chose me. I know who I chose." His voice dropped low, rough. "That's what scares the hell out of me." She froze. Jessie scrubbed a hand through his wet hair, pacing once before facing her again. "I already buried one woman." "I am not," his voice cracked, just for a moment. "I am not doing that again." The barn seemed to shrink around them. The smell of hay and rain and horse filled the air, warm and alive. Martha stepped closer, her boots sinking softly into the straw. "You didn't bury her," Martha said gently. "The land took her, and it wasn't because she was weak. It was because she was alone when it happened." Jessie looked up sharply. "And I won't be," Martha continued. "Not if you stop treating me like I'm one breath away from breaking." He stared at her, as if seeing her for the first time not as a mail-order stranger, not as a responsibility he'd taken on, but as a woman who would fight beside him, not behind him. "Martha," he whispered. Lightning didn't flash this time. No thunder followed, but the moment cracked open like a fault line anyway. Jessie reached out, stopping his hand just before touching her cheek, hesitating in a way that didn't match the fearless cowboy the town knew. Then, slowly, deliberately, he let his fingers brush her skin. "You're strong," he murmured. "Stronger than I ever expected. Stronger than I knew I needed." She leaned into the touch, heart pounding with every word. "But strength cuts both ways," he added. "It can save you, or it can drive you straight into danger. And love does the same," she said quietly. His hand stilled. The word hung between them, spoken until now, but impossible to ignore. Jessie stepped closer, so close she could feel the warmth radiating through his soaked shirt. "I'm not ready to lose again," he said. "Not you. Not anyone." Martha's breath trembled. "Then stop shutting me out," she whispered. The barn felt smaller with every breath they shared. The storm had passed, but its echo lingered in the air, heavy electric, waiting. Martha's pulse beat loud in her ears as Jessie lowered his hand, not pulling away entirely, but resting it against the beam beside her, caging her in without touching her, not trapping, or maybe protecting himself. "Martha," he said quietly, "I didn't bring you here just to help with the land." She swallowed. "Then why?" His eyes flicked away, then returned to hers with raw honesty that startled her. "Because I was drowning." The words were barely above a whisper, yet they hit harder than any thunder. Martha straightened, breath-catching. "After my wife died," Jessie continued, "I kept this ranch alive, the only way. I knew how by working until I couldn't think. By fighting storms, wolves, outlaws, anything that wasn't grief." Martha stayed silent, letting him speak. "But grief doesn't stay buried. It waits. And when winter came last year, it nearly took me with it." His voice roughened. "The ranch needed someone who could stand their ground. I needed someone who wouldn't disappear the moment life got harsh." "So you sent for a stranger?" Martha said softly. "Not just any stranger." Jessie's gaze held hers. "I read every letter twice. Yours 3 times. You wrote like a person who refuses to bend for anyone who doesn't deserve it. I needed that. I chose that. Martha felt heat rise in her chest. Shock, gratitude, something deeper that she hadn't let herself name. But I didn't expect. He hesitated, jaw tightening. I didn't expect to feel anything again. And definitely not this strong. Not this fast. Her breath hitched. He stepped closer. Not touching her, just closer. Close enough to feel the warmth of him. The storm-battered shape of a man who had carried too much for too long. You're not a burden, he said. You're not too much. You're not something I need to manage or restrain. You're... He exhaled sharply. You're exactly what this place needs. Exactly what I need. Martha's throat tightened. She wanted to speak, but the words tangled inside her. And that terrifies me, Jesse finished. Soft hoofbeats echoed from the far end of the barn. Rory, returning. He stopped when he saw them, eyes narrowing slightly, but he said nothing. He simply checked the nearest stall, giving them a moment of privacy without acknowledging it aloud. Jesse stepped back, but only an inch. We should get you warmed, he said, voice steadier now. You'll freeze in those clothes. Martha nodded, though her heart still pounded from everything he'd revealed. She turned toward the barn doors, but Jesse caught her wrist gently, as if he couldn't quite let go yet. I meant what I said, he murmured. I'm not losing you. She held his gaze, feeling her own fear slowly unraveling in the warmth spreading through her chest. Then don't push me away, she whispered. Not when I'm trying to walk beside you. Dawn broke over the mountains in soft gold, as if the land itself wanted to apologize for the merciless storm of the night before. Mist curled across the pastures, drifting low and quiet like breath exhaled by the earth. Martha stepped outside the cabin, her muscles stiff, her clothes clean but still carrying the faint scent of hay and rain. Today felt different, not commercial. Rory was already in the yard, feeding the horses. He lifted his chin when he saw her. Hartford wants you by the east field, he said. Didn't say why. Martha wiped her hands on her skirt. Is something wrong? Not wrong, Rory replied, adjusting a saddle strap. Important. He didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. Something in his voice told her, this day matters. She walked across the ranch, boots crunching through damp grass. The sun hadn't fully risen, but its orange glow painted the sky in streaks of fire. The air smelled of wet sage and promise. Jesse waited by the east fence line, leaning against a post he'd repaired himself. A folder of documents rested on the rail beside him. When he looked up, something shifted in his expression, not the guarded calm she'd seen before. Not the desperate strain of last night, but a quiet certainty. You came, he said. You asked, she answered. He liked that. She saw the flicker of a smile, brief but real. Martha, he began, picking up the folder, the ranch survived because of you. If you hadn't acted fast with those calves, if you hadn't kept the herd moving when the bank gave way. He paused, eyes steady on hers. I would have lost a lot more than cattle. Martha felt heat rise under her skin, not embarrassment, but a fierce pride she'd never been allowed to feel before. I just did what needed doing, she said. You did more than that. Jesse opened the folder and held out the papers she recognized instantly, the deed. The transfer of ownership. The signature line with her name beneath it. Her breath caught. I already told you I'd give you half the ranch, he said quietly. But last night, you earned it. Not because you're my wife. Not because of some agreement we made miles apart. He met her gaze fully, with nothing hidden. You earned it because this land responds to you. Because you fought for it like it was already yours. Martha reached out, fingertips brushing the paper, but she didn't take it yet. Her throat tightened. "Jesse, you don't owe me this." "I know," he said. "That's why I'm giving it." The wind swept between them, cool and clean. The ranch stretched behind him, fields, fences, mountains, rivers live and vast and unforgiving. A place that demanded strength, that punished hesitation, that shaped people into steel or broke them. A place that was offering her a home. Not because she had nowhere else to go, but because she belonged here. "Take it," Jesse said softly. "Not as payment. Not as protection. As a partner." Martha closed her hand around the deed. Martha held the deed in her hands, feeling the weight of the paper and everything it represented. The rising sun caught its edges, turning the parchment gold. For a moment, she simply stood there, letting the reality settle into her bones. Half the ranch, not gifted, not offered out of pity, earned. When she finally looked up, Jesse was watching her with an expression she hadn't seen before, something stripped of every mask, every shield, something vulnerable. "Thank you," she whispered. "You don't have to thank me," he replied. "Just stay." The words were simple, but they struck her harder than any storm. She stepped toward him across the damp grass. Jesse didn't move away. He didn't look uncertain. He looked ready. Ready in a way he hadn't been until now. "I meant what I said last night," Martha told him. "I'm not fragile, and I'm not going anywhere." His shoulders eased just slightly, as if the tension he'd carried for years finally loosened. The sun climbed higher, casting light over his face, revealing the quiet exhaustion carved into his features, veined the hope beneath it. "Martha," he said, voice low, "you changed this place. You changed me." She shook her head. "You didn't need changing. You just needed someone to see you." He stared at her for a long moment. Then he reached out, very slowly, as if giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his hand touched her cheek, thumb grazing her skin with a tenderness she never imagined he possessed. "Martha Hartford," he said, "I've been holding on to ghosts longer than I should. But you bring me back to the living." Her breath trembled. The world around them, the ranch, the fields, the lingering mist, fading until only the warmth of his touch remained. "I'm here," she whispered. "I'm right here." Jesse leaned in, but not with urgency or desperation. It was something steadier, something earned, something that had grown through storms and danger and fear. When his lips met hers, the kiss wasn't a spark. It was a grounding, a claiming, a promise. His hands came to rest on her waist, hers against his chest, feeling the quiet thunder of his heartbeat. It was the first moment between them, untouched by fear or hesitation. When they finally separated, Jesse rested his forehead against hers. "We'll build this place together," he murmured. "Every fence, every field, every future." Martha smiled, the weight of her old life falling away like broken shackles. "I know we will." Rory's voice carried from across the yard. "Jesse, Martha, you two done? We've got fence posts to replace before sundown." Jesse huffed a laugh, pulling back but keeping her hand in his. "Back to work?" "Back to work," she agreed. Hand in hand, they walked toward the fields, not as strangers, not as two people bound by an arrangement, but as partners forged by the wild land that demanded everything and returned only to those who dared claim it. The ranch had tested her. The storm had revealed him